I will open up the regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners for November the 16th, 2009. At this point in time, I'd ask everybody to stand for the presentation of colors by the Mount Pleasant High School Air Force Junior ROTC.
Oh. That. Ace.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This time I call on Reverend Jim Hood from the Carr Street United Methodist Church.
Let's bow our heads. To the God who created all and is still creating in our lives today, we come before you this evening. We recognize the burdens of leadership in this world, the challenges of balancing conflicting needs as we strive to make the right decisions. We humbly acknowledge our own human weaknesses and frailties and our reliance on your guidance in this task. Therefore, this evening we ask for your wisdom so that the decisions that are made here would bring genuine prosperity and justice to our community. But more than that, we ask for a greater wisdom, a wisdom that transcends man's wisdom, so that the decisions that are made would bring not only prosperity, but also peace, and not only justice, but also grace, dignity, and a sense of mutual respect to and for each resident of our community. To this end, we open our hearts and our minds to your guidance, and we lift this request in the power of the name that is above all names. Amen.
Now, if the young men and young lady from the Mount Pleasant High School Junior ROTC would come forward and tell us who you are and a little bit about yourself.
Good afternoon. I'm Cadet Captain Tyler Lee Nurse, and I'm the son of Renee and Ken Nurse. And after high school, I would like to join the Air Force, and while I'm in the Air Force, get a college degree and go to an officer position. And then once I'm out of the Air Force, I would like to get a job in law enforcement.
Thank you, sir. If you'll go to your, right over here to Commissioner Poole.
I'm Cadet Captain Charles Lewis. I'm the son of Dean and Jolie Lewis. After high school, I intend to get a degree in history and go into the Air Force.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm Cadet John Whitesides. I plan on joining the Air Force, going to college, getting a degree in aeronautical science. then joining or becoming a pilot in the Air Force.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am Cadet First Lieutenant Shelby Cook, the daughter of Sharon Phipps and Brian Cook. After graduating high school, I plan to attend the University of North Carolina at Wilmington to become military police for the Air Force.
Thank you, ma'am. We have before us the minutes on page 4.
Make a motion be approved, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion and second to approve the work session minutes of October the 5th and the regular meeting of October 19th. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries. We have before us the agenda for this evening, which has some supplemental information, which is on the very back of the stapled papers that was presented to us or given to us earlier. We have a motion to approve the agenda as it is.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries. Next we have is on page 37 is a recognition and presentation, and this is the recognition of Deputy David Blackwelder on his retirement from Cabarrus County. Call on Sheriff Brad Riley to come forward and Commissioner Caruth to go down.
Once again, I want to thank you for giving us an opportunity to recognize this fellow's service to the citizens of Cabarrus County for over 28 years with 30-plus years in total credit time served. David Blackwelder has been a true asset and still continues to be an asset through the fire department, and it's just wonderful that y'all take the time to recognize the dedication and commitment and loyalty that these young men and women show. I'd like to take just a moment before I give David a chance to speak. He goes by Buster, and most people won't recognize him as David, I wouldn't think, though. So if you would allow me to read just a small snippet of what he has accomplished over the years. And again, this is just a small snippet if you've become familiar with Buster over his time. He retired at the end of September with about 28-plus years of time served, again with 30 years of full service. He's a lifelong resident of Cabarrus County, graduated from Mount Pleasant High School in 1978, has served 35 years as a member of the Coldwater Volunteer Fire Department, where he continues to serve today, has served 25-plus years as the assistant chief there. In 1981, he met deputies Bobby Bonds and Danny Cagle at an off-duty deal that they were working, and they suggested that as they got to talking and he showed an interest in law enforcement, they suggested that he go down and meet with Sheriff J.B. Roberts at the time, and Sheriff Roberts hired him just very soon after. His first assignment was in the jail division, where he worked for nearly 2 years. In 1983, he was moved to patrol division and worked on B Squad under Lieutenant Richard Armstrong. And when I came to work sheriff's office 20 years ago, he was still with that squad, and I was fortunate enough to get to ride with him, and he trained me. So anything that I do wrong, I attribute to what he trained me. In 1994, he was assigned to the hospital division, worked there for a while. In 96, he returned back to patrol on B Squad. 1998, Buster moved to community policing. He and I both went to that division together, and that's where he retired from. However, in 2000, he became the Cabarrus County Sheriff's Office first K-9 officer. His first dog's name was Franta. Franta was, they partnered for 7 years, and then Franta, that's about the extent of a dog's livelihood in law enforcement. And we retired Franta with due to medical injuries. He was fortunate enough to have another dog that he trained named Nitro. Nitro, again, remained with Buster in his retirement. I guess it was fortunate for him and unfortunate for us that he's such a good trainer in K-9s. I mean, he is a lead throughout the entire state, that his dog became so fragmented to him that that there was no way it could train under anyone else. So that was a benefit in his part. He had countless hours of training. Again, he was certified in different things: toxilizer, breathalyzer, radar, field training officer, served on our SWAT team for a while. And Buster's a cop's cop. He's the kind of guy that everybody wants as a partner. He knows a little bit about everything, and that's rare. A lot of people know a little bit about a few things, but Buster tends to know a little bit about just about everything. And he's just the kind of guy that has a knowledge base that you would like to go to and receive help. I've greatly enjoyed his friendship over the years, and one thing I could always count on him: he's always going to be at work. He's always going to give you 100%, and you can rest assured that he's going to hold Cabarrus County and the sheriff's office as his #1 priority when he's in that uniform. And it's just it's a bittersweet moment. Bitter in the sense that we lose him as an officer and have to try to replace him with a couple of young pups, but at the same time it's sweet in the sense that he's dedicated his time and he's paved the way for some of these young ones. At this time, I'd just like to say how much I appreciate you and appreciate the time you've given, and your lovely wife has been supportive of us as well. Thank y'all both.
Deputy Blackwater, we have a plaque that I would ask Commissioner Caruth to.
Yeah, and this is, I think probably nothing else can be said that Brad didn't say. And, I echo that as well, that we appreciate your service. The citizens appreciate your service and being there and the dedication you've shown. And I think any time that we can take and honor a law enforcement officer for successfully finishing a career and, put their lives on the line every time they go out that front door, I think it's just tremendous that we can do this. Buster, here's the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners acknowledges with sincere appreciation the dedicated service by David R. Blackwelder in recognition of 28 years of service to Cabarrus County and its citizens, July 1st, 1981 to September 30th, 2009.
Deputy Blackwater, do you have anything you'd like to add? Or
Yes, sir. Commissioners, Chairman, I'd like to just thank Cabarrus County to have the opportunity to work in a great county like Cabarrus County and serve under the sheriffs that I've served under. All of them been great sheriffs, and I don't have no regrets. And I just enjoy the opportunity to have the privilege to work for Cabarrus County.
Well, one thing I think that a lot of the public doesn't understand, and you can enlighten a little bit, Deputy Blackwelder, is being a K-9 officer is not 9 to 5 or any 8-hour period. You take the dog home.
That's right.
You're responsible for him 24/7.
It's a 24-hour job.
And if he's not working with you, he's got to be out exercising. Otherwise, he gets a little bit wild and precocious.
That's correct.
Well, I certainly, we all certainly appreciate all that you've done. You've served us. You've served Cabarrus County well, and we'll certainly miss you. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we have informal public comments. First one we have is from Daniel B. Crisco. Mr. Crisco, if you'll please step up, tell us what's on your mind.
My name is Daniel Crisco, and I want to thank you for allowing us to take the Cabarrus County 101 class.
Thank you, Mr. Crisco. And next is Ree Nelson. You didn't think y'all were going to get called on, did you? That's one thing that Chantel doesn't tell everybody.
And I want to say more than just thank you, if I'm allowed to.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I moved to Atlanta from Atlanta in 2004. I'd had my own company, which was a maintenance facility. We constructed maintenance facilities and petroleum facilities. And my husband died in 2000. It took me until 2004 to get everything settled in order for me to move to North Carolina. I came to North Carolina because my daughter lived here in Concord, and my son was in Raleigh, and I chose Cabarrus County as my home. I built a house in Laurel Park, and in order to make Cabarrus County and Concord my home, I had to become active in my community. I volunteered to serve on the ARC committee and the landscape committee, social committee, and was elected on the board of directors. In addition, I became active in my church in the choir. I became excited when I read the article in the paper, in the Charlotte Observer, that this course was being offered. I wanted to learn more about my community. So Cabarrus County Government 101 did this for me. It gave me the opportunity to learn my chosen home community. The 7 101 sessions have been very informative, beginning with session 1, which was related to Cabarrus partners, tax, and understanding the county's budget. I'm very much financially oriented, having been in business, so this was important. We have been informed how the county government functions and the many programs and services available to us as Cabarrus County residents, and I had never dreamed all this was available. And I've talked with residents that was born here, and they were not aware, so I've spread the news. Some of the tours we took, one was very fun and exciting. It was touring Spencer Park. It was on October the 6th, and it was a very fun experience. We toured the cabins, and I think most of my associates agreed we really were not going to spend the night in the cabins. If you've ever toured it, you'll know our reasons why. But we appreciate the fact that it's there for us. Another very important factor that impressed me, and I had no knowledge of it, we were transported by our Cabarrus County Transportation Service. And we were honored to have in our midst, and also tell us about the services, the director, Randy Bass. The community is truly fortunate to have this transportation service, and it's so unusual. I would look out my dining and breakfast window and see the transportation service come a block over to an elderly lady and help her in the car, and I wondered, now what is that? What is happening there? Now I know, and thank God for it. And it's interesting, the following day, there was a featured article in the Charlotte Observer relating to this service for our residents. Again, I'm proud to be here. The jail facility was very interesting. Now, after all the publicity we have experienced and over the past 2 years, it was very informative and enlightening. Observing the high-tech equipment in this facility and the complete interior facility was very impressive. However, we were not allowed to experience a jail cell. But during this session, we were also informed of our emergency medical system, and thank God for it, how it operates, and also how the disaster preparedness is established. In the session on October the 20th, it was closest to my heart. It was focused on planning and development, and our class was given a project. Was given a site drawing and were assigned the task of designing a development. Well, we were given some property details and defined zoning ordinances that were required for the development. However, I did not complete my development project. I was waiting for all the details with the site engineering, which included topography and the tree locations and the age and environmental aspects, and details in order to complete my project design. Well, obviously I didn't complete it, but the session did end with very informative information related to our county development program. On October the 27th, we were honored to be introduced to our county management and county boards and committee directors, and thank you for being there. It was very informative and very impressive. You defined to us the county management procedures and what it does for us. On election day, November the 3rd, our class session was on growing old in Cabarrus County. It was held at the Senior Citizen. Well, I had to miss this because last year I had volunteered to serve in my election precinct. However, I did tell my class associates that I did not attend because my age didn't qualify me. But seriously, I have heard nothing but compliments on the facility, on the programs available there. These are from not only my classmates, from my neighbors, and from my friends, so I will go there, and I've been promised a tour by the director. The session ended last week, and it was related to recycling and conserving our soil and water. Conservation and our environment is very important to me. And there was 2 quotes I want to pass on to you that was given by our presenters, Peter Pestorez, Kevin Grant, and Dennis Testerman. One was, sustainability is a direction, not a journey. Is a direction and a journey, not a destination. And the second one was, we must develop a culture to preserve our natural resources and be dedicated to the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, recycle. So, on behalf of my classmates, Chantel, you are absolutely a great leader. I really appreciate everything you've done, and so does all of my mates. You are wonderful and a great director, and thank you for having that department. And thanks to all the department directors who spoke with us and who participated. Your information and professional knowledge is appreciated. It makes me a better citizen, and it makes us all useful as Cabarrus. It's useful to all of us as Cabarrus residents. And thank you, county commissioners, for providing this informative and important introduction to our citizens and to my community. I am truly proud I selected Cabarrus County in Concord as my home. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Nelson. There are several others that we've filled out cards. Would y'all like to speak after Mrs. Nelson? I would like to recognize, if you'll just stand when your name is called. I'm sorry. Okay. Well, how about we just recognize names when we get to yours, if you'll come up. Brenda Cook. Thank you, Mrs. Cook. Gail Jackson Farley. Thank you. Judy Furr. Deborah Carter. Richard Carter. Jackie Mills. John Mills. Karen Parks. David North. Mary Shepard. James Shepard. Jane Henderson. Tracy Rollerson. Yes, thank you. Come on up.
I recognize some of the faces. I'm a participant in Cabarrus County Government 101. My name is Tracy Rollerson. I enrolled in the class because I'm a secretary of my neighborhood's homeowners association, and I wanted to learn more about the county and what it offered, and I was also looking for it to be fun, of which a friend asked, can you have fun and government in the same sentence? And the answer is yes, you can. And I want to thank all the speakers that came, to Chantel and to all my fellow classmates, because it made it a fun and great experience. As opposed to Rhea, I was terrible at planning and developing. My partner and I looked at the rules, the do's, the don'ts, looked at the paper and said, it's fine, just the way it is, don't need to do anything. Unfortunately, we weren't allowed to do that, so we did something. We had a budgeting class where we had to decision important items. We had limited funds, so did we raise taxes? Did we cut funding? It was all very interesting. Through these, I have a much better appreciation for the process and the decisions that you all have to make. And although I may not agree with all of them, I recognize that you do the best you can to do right by the residents of Cabarrus County. I appreciate that. Thank you. I've been impressed by the dedication of the speakers, the varied speakers that we've had to the class. You and your associates really want to serve the residents of the county. You want to improve the quality of life here by encouraging farmers to grow locally, sell locally, providing the transportation that's been commented on. There was a myriad of things we learned. We had field trips, we tasted food grown locally, prepared by Gina from BOC Meeting, which is phenomenal. We were able to have Q&A sessions with Sheriff Riley, some of you all, the top officials of the county, DSS Department Head Ben Ross, which was very interesting. It's not every day a resident gets to have a Q&A, and we were a tough group, apparently. We asked the questions, and you guys gave the answers, and we really appreciate that. We sincerely appreciate you taking our questions seriously and you answering them seriously. EMT worker Michael Stafford showed us a video that I wish everybody, every driver, young and old, could see about emergency sirens and how drivers can and cannot see that, cannot hear them, and I hope everybody gets a chance to see that. So in closing, I want to say thank you again to all the speakers, the presenters. We appreciated your candor, the roles and responsibilities that you take, and the enthusiasm that you bring to your work. A special thank you to Chantel for making each class sound like it was going to be pertinent and fun, and they were. Yes, even the financial budgeting class was fun. Who would have thought cell phones would have resulted in divided lines between who thought it was a must-have versus who thought it was a nice-to-have? And last but not least, a thank you to my fellow classmates. Most of us aren't from around here. Surprising, I know. And we come from different backgrounds and philosophies, and yet we accorded each other respect, whether we agreed or disagreed with each other's opinions. We had some great laughs, and I wish you all well wherever life takes you. Thank you, and happy holidays.
Thank you. Kathy Teague.
Good evening, and unfortunately I was Tracy's partner and we didn't do very well in planning and zoning, but we learned a lot, so if we have that again. I signed up to take this class as a representative of Rocky River Crossing subdivision in Harrisburg. I've been on the HOA since 2002 and thought this class would be great to learn things to take back to the community. We have about 524 homes, and of the folks I've talked to, nobody even knew about the class, so it's been great to learn. I'd like to thank Chantel for putting the class together, all the department heads that took their time one Tuesday night to come and do the class, Cabarrus Links for taking us on our field trips, and lastly, Gina for making the great dinners. Through the classes, I found transportation for my senior neighbor who can no longer drive due to macular degeneration. Didn't know there was a way to get out. Now she can go to the grocery store, the doctor's office, and doesn't have to wait on a family member. I found a special getaway at Camp Spencer. I did like the cabins. I thought it was neat. There's no phone, there's no TV, there's nothing. You do have to jog down the hill to the restroom, but yeah, the cabin. I have learned how to save money and energy by changing my light bulbs, so when they go out next, I'll be using the little curlicue CFL bulbs. I've prepared a home disaster kit, hope I don't ever have to use it. And most recently, this past Saturday, learned how to make a compost pile. So I'm excited to see how that goes. I really enjoyed each class, and I'm excited about sharing my knowledge of Cabarrus County government with my community. And thank you to all of y'all as well.
Thank you.
This has been very refreshing because it's an example of how people can come out and learn instead of being the group that we hear about all the time. And I know you're in situations where they say, well, what are they up to now? Or what are they thinking? You know, and you say, well, who is they? And when I ask people that, when they say those things, well, who is they? And that's kind of takes them aback. And I said, I thought in a democracy, they was us. So thank you for taking the course. It's very important. And from what you are saying, I think you'll spread the word and get other people in the course and certainly help people know what this county does. We have a wonderful staff here, and they do so many wonderful programs. So thank you for coming and sharing with us.
Last but not least, we have Nancy Moore, Gerald Oliver, Harry Schwartz, Charles Perry, and Chris Pinto. Thank you. Thank you all for taking the class. As Commissioner Minot said, it's refreshing to hear that you're getting so much out of it. And Chantel, with your success, I think it'll be even bigger than ever next time. Thank y'all. If y'all want to step out, we'll take just a couple of minutes to let y'all step out. Under E, we have no old business. Under F, the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion, and we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries. Next matter is page 158, G1, incentive grant request for SBM Solar, Inc. in public hearing. Mrs. Wilson, would you like, or Mr. Cox?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Mr. Manager, Mr. Attorney, Madam Clerk, TV man. It's a privilege to be before you tonight to discuss your consideration for an industrial grant for SBM Solar. This company is the dream and the creation of Dr. Osbert Chung, who was born in Beijing, China, and immigrated to the United States in 1980. He graduated from the State University of California in Sacramento with a PhD in chemistry, and from Temple University in Philadelphia. He's worked for companies like Aerojet. He's worked for the defense contract, for a defense contract company. He's also worked for DuPont. He has taught chemistry at RCCC and at a university in Texas. And he founded SBM in 2002 to develop a non-glass photovoltaic module for the U.S. market. He has been trying for a number of years to achieve his UL certification and just achieved it in 2009. This is a competitive project in that he has discussed it with other economic developers in neighboring counties. His wife is a medical doctor. She obtained her medical degree from I'm having a hard time reading, from a university school of medicine in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Her residency was in anesthesia, Brooke Army Medical Center at Fort Sam Houston, Texas, and she served in the military. And when she was discharged, when her career was over, they moved here to North Carolina, where she's employed today as a doctor at CMC Northeast. They have a daughter that's enrolled in one of our local schools, and they're involved in our community and have been here now for more than 8 years. I've met Osbert. He is well known in the solar industry and is called upon by Fortune 500 companies for consultation work. SBM is currently working on projects for Concord Regional Airport and for the city of Concord, and they have recently placed panels near the runway at the Charlotte Douglas Airport. This is an innovative company. They manufacture things that look like this. Would you like to touch it? It's hot. It's full of energy. But they make these only bigger, and they actually are panels that would go on top of your home. They're different than panels that are currently available because they are lighter, but they're stronger. They conduct as much or more electricity than those that are commercially available today. So it is a product of innovation. They have been domiciled in Cabarrus County and Concord, I think, since 2002. They would like to apply under the county's industrial grant process. They have completed a form. They would like to make a local expansion. I know that's something that the county commission is interested in, the opportunities for local companies, folks who live here, who do well as their company grows, to be able to expand here and not have to leave to move somewhere else. They have 4 employees currently. Records on file with the Secretary of State indicate that their payroll today is between $250,000 and $500,000. They would like to add 16 full-time employees with an annual wage of $40,000. In order to do this, in addition to the industrial grant that they are requesting, they need to lease an additional 22,000 square feet of space. As I said, it would be a $1.3 million investment that they would be making, not in the building, but in the purchase of new equipment. They have completed the application and it is on file. We have submitted a pro forma that shows the amount of the grant over the period of time, the county tax rate, the grant at 85%, and showing that in each of the years there is net income, net tax revenue to the county, and over the period of the grant there is net revenue in the amount of $3,685.50 to Cabarrus County. We have also prepared, in working with your tax department, a depreciation schedule that shows what the depreciation is, but the net tax to the county in each of those first 7 years. And we've also included the solar equipment life expectancy for each of these pieces of property, pieces of equipment, and they range from 7 years to one piece at 10 years and one piece at 15 years. I am in receipt of the agreement that the county attorney has drafted, and there is a section there called special conditions that the county has asked for under covenants, terms, and conditions. The county's obligation to make grants provided in this agreement are specifically conditioned upon the company executing a commercial lease binding on SBM for a minimum term of 5 years at the site, occupying the site for at least 5 years after the installment of the new investment, and operating the facility with at least 16 new full-time employees with an average annual wage of $40,000 for no less than 5 years. There are clawbacks appropriately in this contract as the county attorney has outlined them. I think that contract draft form is available to you. I'd be happy to entertain any questions from the board, if that would be your direction at this time, and try to answer them to your satisfaction.
Are there any questions from this board?
One question, John. Going to add 16 new jobs. Is that over a period of 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? How many years?
Well, if you'll read the contract, it calls for those 16 new jobs to be created in that 5-year period. My guess is it'd be something that would be up to the interpretation of the manager and the attorney. I was at the company today and spoke with the owner and asked him the question, when do you anticipate hiring employees? He said, we want to begin the new manufacturing process in the first quarter, and we want to hire them immediately.
Or I wonder if the company does not fulfill that commitment of 16 new jobs.
According to the draft,
what happens?
According to the draft agreement, they have to comply with all those conditions, including that one. If they do not, the grant is removed.
They would have to refund to the county all of the
That's correct.
The incentive grant. Is that correct? Very good.
Trying to get something you could vote for.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, you and I discussed earlier today a little bit, and that was one of the things that we talked about, was not just the jobs, but also because the difference between this, we've had, a couple of these that are personal property versus the real estate. And the real estate's always going to be there. It's going to continue, hopefully, to increase in value. Continue dealing with depreciation of personal property, dealing with life cycle. I know that y'all provide us with the life cycle stuff there. Is that, when you look at the life cycle, perhaps being, in this day and age, the technologies you're dealing with, life cycles sometimes are very short for manufacturing equipment. Is how do you overcome that when the life cycle may be the same or slightly shorter than the payback period for any kind of incentive, as far as the value still being there? And then is there any other way out there that you know of where, you put any kind of conditions on, if they come back and say, well, we're going to improve, other companies have done that, we're going to change out and put in, new equipment when this becomes obsolete. How do you do that so that you don't land up always buying new equipment every 4 or 5 years? Is there any other provisions out there anywhere to do that with?
Well, I would
not,
say
you know.
because this is an innovation industry, and I think that you're dead on, that as innovation takes place in this field of manufacturing and an initial project hits or doesn't hit, they retool, and there will be new technologies in future years. And so unless the company stops manufacturing, and in this case, if they stop in 5 years or less, the grants are taken back. If they're successful, my guess is they're going to continue to add new generation production equipment and carry on.
Okay.
Now, am I right, John, in looking at your compilation here, in 3 years, they're gonna pay $24,570 in taxes, and the grant will give them back $20,884.
Yes.
So our net revenue for the county to help us build schools and meet other needs will only be $3,685.
Aren't you glad you have that instead of a big fat zero?
Well, my concern is the whole item of fairness. We've got companies that's got, I was looking at our audit, several hundred employees. All they've got hit with is more taxes. But anyway, thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Glad to do it.
Well, I thought about, though, today, Mr. Privet, that's a good point, because I did think about today in looking at that, is if you figure up 16 employees, if they make an average of, say, $40,000 a year, say they spend $20,000 a year retail, you know, they're paying somewhere around $3,000 per household in sales tax. They buy homes, if they're, you know, new people. I know you can't say that all 16 of them would, they may already be here. But if you bring some new people move into the community to take these jobs, buy a home, say it's $200,000, and we're going to see, you know, somewhere around $1,200 a year in property tax from those folks. So, you know, you can see where pretty quick, just the very fact that the jobs are there here adds revenue in and of itself above and beyond, you know, the revenue that the company would bring in. So, you know, because I hear what you're saying, though, about, yeah, we've got to build schools and stuff, but an opportunity to help a company getting started out, and I think that any company that meets the criteria is eligible to come and apply for these same grants.
Well, it is your grant process. It is not mine.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that if we're going to look at criterias, I'm not certain that personal property is well defined or understood in our incentive grant. I think that if we're going to look at personal property, we certainly need to have a better forum to be able to discuss it in regards to all the questions, because I'm not certain each one of us has had the opportunity to think all the way through all the issues that come up or potentially come up with personal property. And I certainly agree with what Commissioner Privet said, is if I look at it as an investment with our community, is that when you have an investment, whenever I make an investment, I look at my rate of return and when do I get the return back. I certainly think that we need to discuss a little bit more and have all of our ideas fleshed out. I'm not certain that tonight we have the time or the wherewithal to properly give this the attention it deserves. With that, do we have a motion to table this until our December meeting? We have a second?
Second motion.
We have any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That'll be tabled until our December meeting. And Mrs. Honeycutt, I'm not certain what day that is. 21st.
So will you then re-advertise for the public hearing?
Yes, we will re-advertise, and I would anticipate on December, if my math is correct, December the 7th, we can discuss it, discuss the issues in regards to personal property and doing an incentive grant and more in regards to personal property on December the 7th. And if there's any input that the EDC or the EDC board would like to give to that discussion, we will certainly welcome it then.
So are you considering then making a change to your grant process relative to the issue of personal property?
I think it further needs to be further defined as regards to personal property, is that if we are going to, in my personal belief, is that if we're going to start looking at incentivizing personal property, that's completely different property, or different matters than real property, or there's different issues that need to be decided in regards to personal property versus real property. Real property doesn't depreciate, personal property does, as we all know. The question is it the right thing to do in a personal property setting only? And in that setting, how is the best way to provide safeguards not only for provide safeguards for the county and the taxpayers, because that's the most important thing.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Yes, sir. On G2 is page 178. That is a proposed text amendment, proposed changes to Chapter 4, Part 2, Water Body, Buffer Zone, and Public Hearing. Mrs. Morse.
As we discussed at the work session, this text amendment does change a couple of items in the water body buffer zone. It changes, number one, the intent statement. It clarifies the intent of the district. It also changes the requirements for bona fide farms or ponds that are strictly used for irrigation purposes, or if they're impoundments that are used either for agricultural or again for irrigation. And it also changes the buffer on intermittent streams and what are called Class 2 streams, so that those are more consistent. If you remember, we talked about with the calculation that's required now on something that may look like a wet weather ditch, it would actually require 75 feet plus into someone's property for that buffer. The change also allows property located in that buffer to be counted as part of a lot. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Are there any questions for Mrs. Morris at this time? Seeing none, I will open this for a public hearing. Does anybody would like to speak for or against the modification or amendments to the water body buffer zone and public, or water body buffer zone?
Say that 3 times real fast.
Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Do we have a motion to adopt ordinance text 2009-00011, amending the Cabarrus County zoning ordinance as presented? We have a motion. We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries. Next matter that we have is G4, is a text amendment for the district development standards and appendix. I'm sorry, 3. The female chickens, Mrs. Morris. Now, these are the female urban chickens.
Yes, that's correct. Female urban chickens.
City chickens.
City chickens.
If you remember, we talked about this text amendment. It does apply to less than 5 acre tracts. 5 acre tracts and more are subject to regular livestock standards that allows them to have what you would consider farm animals. This text amendment allows only female chickens, and it is based on a graduated system depending on how many acres they have. And the chickens would have to be in either a chicken house or a run. Setbacks are 25 feet minimum from a property line for the house and the run, and typically it's contained together. And then also 50 feet from any stream. And roosters would not be permitted.
So that rooster I heard out at Franklin's Park Saturday morning in the neighborhood.
Maybe he was in Concord.
That's right. That's in the city limits, isn't it?
When we were in our work session, we talked about being concerned about if, you know, how do we address health issues, safety, policing to make certain, and noise. And could you talk about those briefly?
As we discussed, if there was an issue or a potential issue, it would be handled through our zoning ordinance, and it would become a zoning enforcement action. There would be, you know, as far as noise and those types of things, again, the chickens they are supposed to be in that house, so they should be contained in their own house and not in the yard where they could potentially fly over the fence to somebody else's yard. So it would just be contained hopefully within that area where they are. So they won't actually be roaming, they'll be in the house.
Any other questions? I will open this up for a public hearing. Does anybody like to speak for or against? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Have any further discussion?
Make a motion, we approve it.
We have a motion to adopt, and we have a second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries. Now to G4 is the District Development Standards and Appendix B Commercial Design Standards for a public hearing. Mrs. Morris.
This text amendment does change the standards that we have now. It looks at commercial developments that are permitted in residential districts a little bit differently than what our standards have in the past. If it's a more intense use in a residential district, they will be subject to our Appendix B. If they are uses that are more similar and compatible with a neighborhood or a rural setting, then they would only be subject to the new standards that are proposed, which really are more related to building materials. So with the actual commercial standards, you still have articulation and parking to the rear, things like that. The new standards would somewhat relax that and allow parking to happen like it should around those uses that would be in residential areas. It also allows our planning and zoning board some flexibility to look at the context of where the project is to make sure that it is neighborhood sensitive.
Any questions for Mrs. Morris? I'll open this matter up for public hearing. Does anybody like to speak for or against the proposed text amendment? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, move we approve the text amendment 2009.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries. Next matter we have is a finance, and I'll call on Mrs. Dubois. This relates to the qualified school construction bonds for Kannapolis City Schools projects.
Yes, I'm before you this evening to hold a public hearing for the qualified school construction bonds. The City of Kannapolis has submitted an application for the completion of a roof and replacement of HVAC equipment in the total amount of $2,105,434.99. At this point in time, there are Q-scabs that are selling out there, but they are having, at this point, a 0.5% coupon on them. Our requirements are to have a zero coupon, which is the intent of the Q-scab. So at this point in time, we're not prepared to go to market, but we are requesting the public hearing to be held, and at a later date would bring the application back in front of the board for approval once we proceeded to the market.
In holding this public hearing, it does not obligate the county to do anything. It just
not until you approve that agreement.
Okay. We have any other questions for Mrs. Dubois? And we will open this up for a public hearing. Anybody like to speak for or against the or comments on the qualified school construction bonds financing? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. There is nothing that we need to adopt. Is that correct, Mrs. Dubois? Nothing that needs. That's what I thought. Now, this is the great part of tonight's meeting. Is the name proposal for the new park in southeast Cabarrus County. Mr. Downs.
As you said, Mr. Chairman, this is an exciting time. This is one of those that you feel privileged to stand up and speak before the board about. As you know, several years ago, the staff was directed to search out a parcel of property appropriate or suitable for a park site in southern or southeastern Cabarrus County. And after reviewing many sites, we came up with the site, and we talked to Rob and Donna Wallace. Their site down just south of Midland, a 190-acre plus or minus tract. And after staff toured many times, and the board, members of the board and members of the Parks and Recreation Board have all toured the site and sort of fell in love with the site, we pursued the negotiations with Mr. Wallace, and he was willing, a very willing seller. In fact, he felt it to be honored that we asked to put a park on his property. So. After the negotiations went on, we were able to secure the property for approximately $2 million less than the tax value of the property. And not only that, Mr. Wallace was offered a 30-year term on the county buying that property. So at 0% interest, mind you. So that enabled us, the county, to go out and actually secure a larger piece of property than we were looking for. And it also allows us to put the cash that we had in our fund balance, in our capital improvement fund balance, to go towards actual construction, where we can just begin making those annual or those monthly installments. We could also go ahead and put that money towards the construction. So on behalf of the park staff and the Parks Board, I recommend to you that we call this parcel, this new park, the Rob Wallace Park, and we bring that to you for your consideration at this time.
Are there any questions for Mr. Downs? This afternoon, or this morning, I received a fax from Mr. Wallace and Mrs. Wallace, and they asked me to read it. So if you'll beg me a few minutes. To Jay White and the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners from Rob and Donna Wallace, today's date. We are both honored and are humbled by the action of the board has taken on naming the park in southern Cabarrus County. We are pleased and thankful to have been blessed to the point where we could have a hand in this facility, which should contribute to an enhanced quality of life for Cabarrus County citizens for years to come. However, we want to point out that without your forward thinking as a board and without the dedication and professionalism of your staff people, this project would not have been possible. John Day, Mike Downs, Pam Dubois, and Londa Strong all deserve recognition for the constructive way in which this project has been approached. We thank you for the opportunity of participating in this exciting project. Rob and Donna Wallace. And I would ask that Mrs. Honeycutt make that part of the minutes.
You ready for a motion?
I do. I am ready.
I move that we name this Southeast Park the Rob Wallace Park.
We have a second. We have any further discussion?
Just make a comment. I had a chance to meet Rob and Donna. By knowing them predates being on this board, and I can tell you that they've just tremendous people, tremendous part of our community. The fact that I think Rob will not take credit for it, but I think that you realize that a lot of reasons why Corning is where it's at is because of Mr. Wallace's diligent efforts as well. And I just think this is a tremendous, because I've been down, I've seen the park. For those of you that haven't been to see the park, those people, members of the public, you're in for a treat, because it is unbelievable. I mean, just to stand on it and look around and see. As far as I'm concerned, we can just leave it just like it is right now and just say you can come out there and hang out on it. But I know we've got to do some improvements and some things to it, and I'm looking forward to the day it gets open when we can go down there and celebrate.
I'm remiss that there are several members from the park board tonight. Thank y'all for all that y'all have done. It's a tremendous job. Mr. Herlocker is the chairman of the Parks Board, but thank y'all for everything you do for Cabarrus County. Mr. Parker, I'm sorry, Mr. Parker as well. Y'all have done it. And Mr. Parker served on the board, stepped off, served on the board, stepped off, and now is serving on the board again. So that but
you think you'd want to come to be county commissioner, but I don't. Get better on the park board.
But thank y'all. You know, it's tremendous. Anyway, we have a motion. We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Thank you. Motion carries. We have now on G7 was supposed to be a consent agreement for the West Oaks subdivision project, and I think that needs to be tabled. Is that correct, Mr. Cook?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. This afternoon, staff received a request from Richard Flo, who represents Steve Wasserman and Brandon Little, the owners of that project. He has raised an issue and a proposed amendment to the consent agreement that relates to some of the adequate public facilities ordinance litigation that the county is currently involved in. And for that reason, I think that this request for this additional provision is something that would be more properly discussed in closed session. Okay. So I'd suggest that we do that when we discuss litigation later on.
Do we have a motion to table this until our December 21st, 2009 meeting?
Chairman.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next matter we have is G8, is the presentation of the fiscal year 2009 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. Mrs. Farrington. And we have it on our computers. If you just click on the PowerPoint presentation on the, okay.
But I'm not seeing it here. Down here.
It only happens when the camera's on you.
Mr. Chairman, she's been doing it for 8 years, her ninth one I've heard her give. That's the first time this has ever happened to her, so I think that's, 90% success rate's pretty good.
I can't type up there though.
Why? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Presented to you this evening is a comprehensive annual financial report for the year 2009. So it ends June 30th, 2009. We're required each year to get a audit, and the audit's performed as soon as possible after the close of the fiscal year. This is has to be performed by an accountant who is certified by the local government commission. This is the first fiscal year we've used Martin Starnes and Associates. They're a regional firm headquarters in Hickory, and we have one of the partners with us tonight, Mr. Brian Starnes, who we'll be hearing from shortly. Each year, the finance staff spends a considerable amount of time working on the audit, on the presentation, and the CAFR, and getting the numbers trued up at June 30th. So anytime you're coming into the finance office during July, August, September, on into October, that's what we're primarily focused on, is getting this presentation ready. Just to give you an example, once we close our books at June 30th, the new fiscal year starts 2010, so we have to really have two sets of books open at the same time and working in those. But once we're finished, we can start preparing our financial statements, which we have before us. The financial statements are a responsibility of management. So we're responsible for this, but the auditors come in and review internal control, look over the numbers and things, but we are ultimately responsible for the presentation. I'm in charge of making sure that it's complete, accurate, and on time. And this could not be possible without the finance staff, so they're to be commended. At this time, I want to identify a few pages, go over a few things, and then we'll call our auditor forward to finish up the presentation. In the audit, there are 4 different sections, and just to let you know, we are on page 263. The financial section is the largest section, and it starts on page 283. Just to get you oriented, is everybody? That area, our financial section. I want to spend a little bit of time on the balance sheets. So if you'll go over to 300. Okay, the balance sheet here. Let me blow it up just a little bit for the audience. Okay. Okay, we're going to concentrate mainly on the general fund column there, and this is our biggest fund that we have. There's $60,120,000 in that column there. Of course, our assets have to equal our liabilities and fund balance. I just want to touch on a couple things here. We have cash. The more significant item is our cash and cash equivalents. And at June 30th, we had investments in North Carolina Cash Management Trust. Due to the financial conditions right now, we thought that was the safest investment, so we only had things invested in the cash trust. The receivables are the categories as shown next down the thing there. We have accounts receivable and customers and property taxes. These are things that we had to record, but they're not collected in cash. They're not readily available to spend at the year end.
Our largest one is due from other governments. This is our sales tax. We have, at June 30th, we have 2 more months of sales tax to collect and to accrue back into the current fiscal year. So that's money that we've earned, but we cannot touch. On down, we have liabilities in our fund balance section. The liabilities are made up of salaries and benefits or other outstanding invoices that we owe at June 30th. If going on down, we're talking about the fund balance. That's always an item of topic we like to talk about. The Local Government Commission considers fund balance to be one of the key indicators of the financial condition of the government. Our unreserved fund balance this year is $41,187,681. This is about 20.59% of our expenditures. And the Local Government Commission recommends us having a minimum of 8%. However, for a county our size, we need about 15% to get through the first couple months of the fiscal year. For example, I just did a look at our revenues versus our expenses. Through October, we have more expenses by $20 million than we have revenue. So if we did not have a hefty fund balance at June 30th, we would not have cash to pay our bills. Of course, that's going to change when we start getting our property taxes in. Towards the end of November and December and first part of January is our largest revenues coming in. But to get us through to that point, we have to have a good fund balance. I wanted to point out one thing we have new this year. We have a unreserved designated for sustainability effort. This was something that was brought up during our May meeting, 2009. This was where we're collecting deferred property taxes, and we want to put them aside for future projects that will support our Cabarrus County sustainability community goal. So that's new for this year. So we've set that apart. Last year it was $288,000, and that will be added to this year each month, and we'll keep up with that. And so that will be there for future sustainability efforts. Any questions on our balance sheet?
One question I was looking for, and I hadn't been able to find it. Would it be in this report the delinquency of property taxes for the last year?
We have our accounts receivable for property taxes as up there on the, it's I may split this up myself, $2,406,000. That's the amount of property taxes owed to Cabarrus County at June 30th.
$6 million.
No, 2.4.
2.4 million.
2.4.
So it says accounts receivable property taxes, $2,406,000 towards the top of the page.
And the state owes us $6.0 million.
Yeah, it's sales tax.
For sales tax.
Yes. We were able to receive. Any more questions on our balance sheet? Okay, if we'll go over to page 301, so just one more page over. This is our statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. And we have a column for each of our major funds, and then our non-major will get combined into one column. We'll concentrate again on our general fund here, and it lists all of our revenues by category and our current expenses by specific functions of the county, like general government, public safety, and list all those going down the page here. If you'll notice at the bottom of the page, it says net change in fund balances was $3,714,000. That is the amount of our revenues over our expenditures. So at the end of the year, we were able to add our fund balance, $3,714,000. Okay, if you will go to page 303, this one is the report that shows you your budget versus your actual. And let me reduce this down a little bit. And it shows the variance. And if you'll look at the far column there where it has the variance in the budgets, you'll notice that our revenues were over budget by $2.1 million. However, if you look at it, the property taxes came in at 2.2, but our sales tax was considerably under by $2 million. This is due to the economic times. The sales tax was just all over the board this past year. But we were very proud of our property taxes. We did very well collecting our property taxes even in the economic times. So they came in over budget.
What's the miscellaneous there?
The miscellaneous, we were able to sell the First Union building.
Okay.
We budgeted for many years and had not collected that money, so we did not see a need to budget it for 2009, but however, we sold it, which was good. So that came in, it's $1 million, so that caused our miscellaneous category to be over budget. I looked at the expenditures. We were $8 million under budget on our expenditures. During the year, we went back and asked the departments to cut 2.9% out of the budget. And so we did that, and then also we delayed some of our projects, capital projects. We have some capital projects that we were able to delay, so we still were able to come in under budget by $8.2 million. This just sort of details it more. Any other questions about our revenues and expenditures? On page 304, which we'll go on to the next page, this is our proprietary funds, which is where our landfill activity is. I won't go line by line there, but it's there for you to review. And then we have on page 308, this is our fiduciary funds. Fiduciary funds account for assets held by the county in a trustee capacity. This is not our money. We're holding it for other agencies. Okay, on 310, this will begin our notes to the financial statements. And our notes, this section is used to give a narrative report of some of the functions that the county may be involved in that you can't readily see from the financial statements we just looked at, so it has more detail that you can review there. It includes definitions, policies followed by the county, a further breakdown of summary items on the balance sheet, information about our Cabarrus Health Alliance, our capital assets, our debt section. One thing I did want to point out on page 332, towards the bottom of the page, this is our outstanding debt. This year we did add $58 million of props for the jail housing unit and the capital lease for the park project we just spoke about for $3.4 million. So that is in there. We also made decrease of our payments for our debt. So to date, we have $364 million in debt outstanding. Right after the fiscal year ended, on July 15th, we issued $85 million of props for construction of schools and renovations of schools. Okay. On page 352, if you'll go over 20 pages. This starts our supplemental section where it has all kinds of different breakdowns, further breakdowns of different funds in the county. If you want to particularly want to look at maybe the Cannon Memorial Library Fund, it's in there. There's different funds will follow these pages.
This is stuff for me, right? This is stuff I might like to look at, right?
Just in case you do.
Yeah.
Okay, on page 383. This is our property tax. We spoke about that earlier, that we were real pleased that it did come in over budget. We have a collection rate of 98.06, and last year this time it was 98.35. So we it was pretty impressive. We only had like 1/3 of a percentage decrease for the economic times. I thought that was a great, that was still good. So our property taxes are holding their own. The next section that we want to talk about is show you is on page 400 to page 418, and that's our statistical tables. And I will not go through each one of those individually unless you have a question, but there's all kinds of different analytical numbers there, comparing years, usually 8 to 10 years with the history there for each category. Our next section is the compliance section, and this includes all of the single audit where the auditors are required to come in and test our major grants, different procedures they prepare, and we have a schedule at the end of our federal and state awards. The federal and state awards are on page 431, beginning there. And it lists all of our awards there. This concludes my portion of the audit budget. I wondered if there's any questions before I introduce our
Any questions for
partner.
Mrs. Farrington? If you'll introduce our guest.
This is Mr. Brian Starnes. He's from Martin Starnes and Associates. Get to his slides right quick. It starts on page 472 for your agenda.
And that's also the PowerPoint, I believe.
Page down. Oops.
it for you.
Good evening. I'm Brian Starnes. I'm a partner with Martin Starnes and Associates, and we're proud to be the auditors for Cabarrus County. As Susan said, our firm is located in Hickory, but we travel as far west as Macon County and as far north as Gates County and as far south as Brunswick County. We audit over 100 units across the state, 33 counties. So we're pretty proud of our governmental experience. I've known Pam and Susan for quite some time, so it's a pleasure to be able to work with them. A few comments just as a matter of introduction. You should know that your staff drafts this entire report. That is an uncommon thing in governmental reporting. It's a very difficult report to do. It takes quite a specialized skill. And I would say out of the 33 units we audit, we have about 8 or 9 that draft their own reports. Across the state, out of the 100 counties, there's probably only about 20 or 25. So it speaks very highly of your staff. And a lot of boards don't understand that that's not the way it is everywhere you go. And so you're definitely fortunate to have that kind of talent on your team. I want to explain a little bit about the audit process, assuming that it has never been explained to you before. We're in an environment from a governmental standpoint where the terms of transparency and accountability are being used a lot. And I just want to make sure you understand how the audit process works. It starts in a typical year. This year it started as soon as we won the award, but this coming audit year will start sometime in January. Our staff will be in contact with Susan and Pam, and we will have reviewed your minutes for the last 6 months. We will pull 1231, which will be 6 months of activity, and start the risk assessment process. And that process includes us as auditors looking kind of down from the ceiling and saying where could things go wrong and go either unprevented or undetected. And we start designing our test in that manner. That involves, we do a tremendous amount through email, thank goodness, where we ask questions and we look at your budget, look at budget amendments, and you're identifying areas where things may happen. Then that helps us design our test. Then our interim procedures are generally done in the spring, and when we're not under near the time pressure that we're all under in the fall. Our staff will come in and they literally kind of scatter throughout the county. Generally everywhere money is collected, somebody is going and at least doing inquiry as to how those procedures are followed. We have in one hand your internal control procedures, and we have in the other hand the results of what they actually are doing and seeing if those things map together. And those are our opportunities to look back at management and say, you say that you do this, but this is what's actually happened. This is an area where you maybe can strengthen your controls. Our concept on that is you'd rather know in March than in November that you had an internal control weakness. We finish up in March. There'll be a short, real informal exit conference. I say March, just spring, with your finance staff, and generally these are housekeeping level issues. If it was a big issue, then we would take a little more formal steps. We also spend that time auditing how the county spends its federal and state dollars that it receives. Primarily, your human services dollars are the largest amounts at social services, and that requires a lot of just pure file testing. It's not doesn't require a brain surgeon to do it, but it does require us to do it. So I don't know where that puts us on the food chain, but. And we, again, if there are findings, we would let staff know and then move on about our business. From that point until June 30, we will probably ask for the trial balance again once or twice. Again, the ease of electronic transfer of data has enhanced the audit process so that we can update our estimates of what we think is happening versus what's actually happening, so that if things are kind of going astray, we're aware of it and can have some communication. Sometime in September, is that when they came out this year? Sometime in September, late August, early September, as soon as Susan and their staff are ready to take their hands off the wheel, our group will convene, and we're primarily focused on June 30 ending results, and so much more of a balance sheet approach to the audit. Happy again to report an uncommon event that you probably are used to, and there's no audit adjustments as a result of our audit procedures. It's sort of like getting a clean bill of health, therefore I shouldn't go get a physical every year, but that's just simply not the case. I mean, your staff, we perform our procedures and there were no audit adjustments, and you get used to it, but just don't take it for granted. That's not the case. I would say that, again, out of our 100 or so units, we'll have 10 that don't have audit adjustments. So it speaks highly of the information you're receiving 12 months a year that you can make decisions based on it. There's not a significant amount of change based on audit results. So that's that. And then the last step is once the report's finished and we've kind of passed a draft back and forth, we'll have an exit conference with Pam and Susan, and we go over the whole process, just how it worked, what did we do right, what did you guys do right, how are our findings, were there any issues we need to deal with, and kind of bring it and put it to closure. Last thing we do is issue and sign our audit opinions, submit to local government commission, it gets approved. So that's sort of the process. Can you take us to the next page? Oh, that's it. The opinion letter that we issued is unqualified, and what an unqualified opinion is to the layman is a clean opinion. It's required by the local government commission, and again, it was no magic leap on our part to issue that for Cabarrus County this year. The good news is, as a result of the single audit procedures, those compliance procedures I talked about, there are no findings, and if there's not any findings, then you don't have any question costs. A finding would be someone left a door open, and a question cost would be as a result of that, we have to question how something was spent. So the fact that we didn't find any doors open doesn't lead us to any question costs. No significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in your internal control system that were detected, and I always make sure I add that last paragraph. It's not an exhaustive test that there are no weaknesses, but there, in our opinion, are no weaknesses where a material error could occur and not be prevented or detected. So you may have $1 or $2 slipping away at a part, but you're not having thousands and thousands of dollars slipping away at some other place or in some other manner. Again, I've already talked about with staff. They were, you're probably watching Susan flounder with this was a joy for me because she's the most prepared person I think I've ever met. So I'm just kind of glad to find out she's human, and she's thanking me for it. So it's happened to me every time I present, but it's the first time to see it happen to someone like her. We did have a management letter this year, and a management letter, for your information, is what we would internally call a housekeeping letter. There's nothing in your management letter that would rise to the importance of a material weakness or a significant deficiency, so it becomes a public document that gets passed around everywhere. It's our formal reporting to you the results of our procedures and some things that give management a chance to enhance some controls. I think that's the last slide, isn't it? So I'll be happy to answer any questions if I can about the process or anything else you want to throw our way.
Mr. Chairman, I've got one question. Just, you heard a while ago that Commissioner Minot said something about when the folks were talking about, they complain about they, and that, we hear it, you get a call, you see 3 county employees down there at Troutman's at, 9:30 in the morning, and why aren't they out working? For the public, they see these things and don't understand, and there's been a lot more focus on it the last couple of years in this country. But by us having this process, what this gives the public the confidence is that the decisions made up here are carried out and they're being done, and that the public's money is being spent properly and being expended properly.
That's correct.
On the part of county employees.
That's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? Or thank you for driving down from Hickory. Hope you have a safe trip back.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to add this. I think it speaks well of our staff. It's not a day goes by we don't pick up the Charlotte Observer and we're reading about thousands upon thousands and thousands of dollars are missing, and they still don't know where that money is. And it speaks well of the superb staff we have and the quality work they're providing for the citizens of Cabarrus County.
I think there's many layers of it. Starts with in DSS with Director Rose and Mrs. Dubois making certain that things are done, and Mrs. Farrington does a tremendous job, and I would certainly commend Mr. Day on not contacting any employers of emailed. I think we handle things a lot differently up here. In Cabarrus County, we talk face to face with people. We find out what's going on, what the issues are, and you're correct, Commissioner Privet. Next thing we have is G9, the discussion on cap and trade issues. Do we have a motion to table this until December?
Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion and we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
I think we need a motion to accept the audit.
Oh,
we have a
So
motion to
moved, Mr. Chairman.
I thought we'd let Mrs. Farrington sweat a little bit.
Okay, so formally, the 2009 comprehensive annual financial report is now presented to your approval.
We have a motion to accept the fiscal
So
year
moved, Mr.
2009
Chairman.
comprehensive annual financial report as presented. We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries. Now
Mr.
you
Chairman,
may go
if
home. Mrs. Farrington.
Mr. Chairman, one question I do have, and I didn't see it, and I'm sure it's done as part of accepting the audit, was the transfer. I know that policy we've had in place for about 5 years now to transfer anything over 15% in their capital reserve fund. Is that in that, shows that, okay, we're still working
That's
on that.
done
Toy.
that's done at a,
We'll have that.
We'll be talking to you about that later.
Okay.
now we have H1. Do we have a motion to appoint Maren Hamby and Ms. Michelle Wilson to serve on the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council? Mrs. Hamby as a student at Northwest Cabarrus High School. Mrs. Wilson is the Teen Tobacco Prevention Cessation Program Coordinator at Cabarrus Health Alliance. We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries. We have just a housekeeping item is that I would encourage, one of the programs we talked about tonight was Government 101. There are some boards that desperately need your help to, if you're willing to serve. Nursing Home Community Advisory Committee, Region F Aging Advisory Committee, there is the Adult Care Home Community Advisory Committee. There's a lot of other boards. I would ask you to look under our website at cabarruscounty.us and look under the boards and committees for that information. It's very important. With that, we do have a report that's been presented, but there's no action to be taken from the CVB quarterly report. And let's see, do we have any closing comments from commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, if I could, just a couple going out, and I noticed that Reverend Hood is still with us, and I don't know whether you would allow him to say a word or two. That I wanted to bring up the fact that Kerr Street United Methodist Church, as well as several other churches in our community, I believe First Baptist is, and I'm not sure, I mean, several other churches I sure am as well, are putting on Thanksgiving dinners this year and open to the public. And I think that's tremendous in light of what's been going on in our economy over the last 12 months, that our churches are opening their doors this year for those meals. And I believe Reverend Hood said they had like 600.
Would you step up, Reverend Hood?
Say a word about what's going to be happening.
This is the first year we're doing this, and we're shooting for between 600 and 700 meals offered free to the community, to anyone that needs it. It's a big step, and as Commissioner Caruth said, it's a cooperative effort. Many churches are helping us, and we're encouraged because a number of local businesses have jumped in and donated supplies and food for us. So we're very excited that we're able to help the community in this way. So it's a big step for us, and we're just pleased that we can do it.
Thank you for your willingness to have outreach.
And may I mention, too, that you would welcome volunteers that day.
We will always welcome volunteers.
Help deliver and all that sort of thing.
Yes,
I know it's
would.
been announced at my church.
Yes.
So it's not only serving, is it serving there at the church, but also delivering, or?
Both.
Okay.
Both. It's our first year, so we don't know how many we're going to have in and how many we're going to deliver.
And if someone wanted to help, either serving or volunteering there at the church, how would they do that?
They could contact the church.
How would they do that?
The number is 704-782-4224. It's Kerr Street United Methodist Church, and we'll be glad to set you up. And if they need a meal, they can contact us, and we'll put anybody on our list for a meal.
And if they wanted to help out at other churches, you would be able to provide them with the other churches that are also participating?
We would be more than happy to, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there any other general comments? With that, do we have a motion to go into closed session and to establish or instruct the public body staff or negotiating agents concerning the position taken or on or by the public body in negotiating the price or material terms of a contract or proposed contract or for the acquisition of real property, and also discuss the threatened or pending litigation as authorized, and to ask and invite Mr. Mike Downs as well as Mr. Jonathan Marshall into closed session. We have a motion and we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. And for everybody, that we will be adjourning after our closed session. And for everybody else, y'all have a great night. Thank y'all.